I think there's a huge pitfall is that a lot of startup companies, they believe that they're going to create a good product and then everyone is going to use it. And that is really not the reality. You're going to get the first customer real quick. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. I think that's important to not think too big in the beginning.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Devico Breakfast Bar. Here we speak with different people involved in the business landscape, share their expertise, delve into the latest tech trends and explore the ins and outs of IT outsourcing. I'm Oleg Sadikov and today I'm excited to have Øyvind Grimsgaard, CEO at YouWell. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss new episodes. Hi Øyvind, and thanks for joining me today.
Hello, thank you very much for the invitation.
Let's start our podcast with a little blitz. I start a sentence and you continue.
Okay, sure.
My position as CEO gave me
Opportunity to help many patients worldwide.
my position as CEO deprived.
Sleep maybe from time to time, yeah.
My main superpower is
Seeing the bigger picture.
my main weakness is
Struggle delegating things I think I can do perfectly.
when I'm afraid I.
Ask my mentors.
Could you take us back to the beginning? What first drew you to entrepreneurship and how did the journey lead to passion for digital health?
Sure, yeah. I think it started actually with my first summer job. I think I was 14, 15-year-old and I was a medical secretary. My mother is a GP. And I think I was basically kind of shocked because when I was a medical secretary there, I got so many faxes, I got letters with physical paper and I had to write it then in the system to the GPs. So I was like, how could that happen when we have the technology for that? And I think kind of that combined with my interest in seeing that I as a person can actually see different challenges and needs and be able to do something with them. So I think the year after that, I really wanted to kind of create something to learn from the experience with starting a business. So I tried to start a business when I was like 16-year-old and I actually landed on an adjustable high heel shoe because there was a lot of challenges like kind of when driving cars, dancing, walking, etc. with a high heel. So I had a prototype and learned a lot from that. It didn't go any further with that. But I went to the entrepreneurship school in Toronto, in Canada, and lived there for a while. And you had to start a business. And at that time, I started a kind of portable medical journal because I had a friend who had a chronic disease and had to have this kind of long list of papers with the emergency information when traveling. And it didn't really go well when he was admitted to hospitals. So I saw a huge potential, especially in the health sector. I think technology there can really solve real problems. And as everyone knows all around the world, the sector has several kind of major needs and issues and challenges. So basically that kind of attracted me into the digital health space to make treatment more accessible, personalized, I think, and digital health kind of gives that opportunity.
You have worked across startups, publishing and healthcare. How have those varied experiences shaped your approach as the CEO today?
Yes, it's a good question. I think for many people who try to work in different sectors, kind of probably experience the same. I think there's several skill sets that are basically general that you kind of have to have in whatever business you do. And definitely like networking, I think that is a huge importance in all sectors. So I think I kind of learned that when starting my own business in different sectors, in publishing as you mentioned. And I think also in some degree, everything you do is kind of about sales and marketing. So kind of learning that and see how it differentiated in different aspects and sectors and businesses. It was a really good learning. And also kind of how do you plan strategy and work with innovation in different ways. It was also really good to have that experience in several startups. So I think that's kind of the basic that I kind of understood the complexity, if you can call it that, of the different sectors. That was a really good learning curve. I think it's good to kind of fail and try a lot before doing your kind of main thing. You kind of need that experience. And I think kind of an important experience, as I said, with kind of my approach today with the CEO is quick iterations to learn, fail fast, learn and do iterations a lot, to experiment, not kind of sit quietly, and you have to combine that with how do you kind of work with risk management in a good way. So I really believe you kind of have to combine the speed with precision in some way. So just to kind of sum it up, I think it's given me a broad perspective, the ability to kind of balance innovation with structure. Yeah.
As CEO of YouWell, how do you balance the demands of leading innovation and managing day-to-day operations?
That's a really good question, and we actually discussed that internally the last weeks because it's a really relative question. Like, just briefly, YouWell, we are a no-code platform for digital treatment, and we work mostly with different health providers like hospitals, and we have, for instance, all hospitals in Norway on our client list. So this means that we are a system to be used in the clinical setting. And the clinical setting, you have to kind of have a day-to-day operation that is slow, it's rigid, you have strict routines that kind of defines the day-to-day operation. And then it's a bit paradox because you kind of have to have that structure, how do you do an operation, but at the same time you want to kind of stay ahead and lead the innovation space. And kind of we have achieved this product market fit, but I think we see all around the world now with AI and new technology that you have this product market fit collapse. So I think it's really, really important to, as I said earlier, like stay ahead with innovation. So then you have to kind of combine this day-to-day operation with steady in a clinical setting, but also innovate. And I think it's possible. I think it's, of course, a technical question of how you set it up, which is not really a big issue, but mostly I think it's organizational question. So I think, for instance, you need a clear direction where you want to take this with an organization. So to be specific, we implemented like OKRs and kind of see how can we connect the strategy that we do with the daily work that we do. And I really believe we should prioritize deep work more. I think that is one issue that we see globally, that we get really busy, we do really small tasks, but kind of prioritize deep work for development of the product, and partnership structure is important. And then I think we really work closely with our customer so we can base everything we do actually on the real needs.
With your experience in entrepreneurship and business development, what are some of the common pitfalls you have observed startups make, and what advice would you give them to avoid these pitfalls?
I think like a lot of people, they don't really focus, they don't base all the product development on the actual needs. And they also kind of focus maybe too much on the product instead of like the needs. So I think kind of that is a important place to start, involving the customer when developing this and basing it on actually the real needs. And this is something that we've done. We created like the first 5 years, we sat together with the customer every day and created something that they could actually use in a clinical setting there. So this is kind of one important aspect. I work really closely with the customer. I think also a second thing is that for us specifically working in the health sector, I think there's a huge pitfall is that a lot of startup companies, they believe that they're going to create a good product and then everyone is going to use it. And that is really not the reality. It's difficult to get a good solution, even though you have documented that this works, to get it into the system. So I think people really need to understand it's a long way for actually getting a good product implemented if you have this kind of B2B strategy or working with the public especially. So really focus on implementation is good. And I think you can always say the obvious things, that you need a good product, you need good people, and you need capital to kind of realize what you have. So foreseeing those things is of course a huge pitfall. And I think try to work more iterative, kind of get the first customer real quick. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. I think that's important, to not think too big in the beginning.
What are some of the biggest technical or operational challenges YouWell has faced in developing its platform, and how have you overcome them?
I'm not sure if I can manage to answer that too specifically, but I think like we started out with, as mentioned, we worked really closely with the customer to base something on their needs. And I think the kind of challenge there is, how can you build something that's generic enough that you can scale it, but still it's specific and kind of adapted enough to get this effect of the different health providers or organizations that want to use this. So I think that's one kind of challenge we had, and how we solved it is that we tried to create this no-code solution, as I mentioned. You have generic platform that you can actually adapt to the different specific organization needs and use cases. And also, as I mentioned, we work in the healthcare space, so I think interoperability is one difficult technical question, and you kind of have these silo challenges that systems do not talk with each other, and it's difficult for health providers to connect with each other. So I think kind of working with integrating our solution with these legacy solutions or systems is difficult, and we still struggle a lot with that. So what we've done, of course, is building our technology on open APIs and kind of push for these strategic partnerships. But that is still one of the major technical issues that we have, getting our system to work well with other systems. And I think, kind of the complex interaction that also you have in our space, we kind of have to work between good designs for users and requirements that we have for different health authorities. And I think how we try to overcome them is, as I mentioned, we work really closely with different users and healthcare stakeholders. Yeah.
From your perspective, what are the biggest barriers to digital transformations in healthcare, especially in more traditional institutions?
Yeah, we kind of know the challenges we have. Like we have millions of underserved patients globally. We have health personnel that basically are battling burnouts. They are overwhelmed, and we work with like legacy systems, as I mentioned. So we have a system that basically will collapse if we don't do something more sustainable. So yeah, these complex systems, they are overwhelmed. I think I kind of look at it as this, let's just say it's a car that drives really, really, really fast, and this is the health system, and the engine, it's smoking and burning, and you cannot stop because it's going so fast. So what you have to do is kind of change one small part at a time, and this is kind of how it is. So we need to kind of innovate and fix parts of it, but it's such a complex system, so it takes really, really long time. And then when you innovate, you work with, let's say, culture, competence, and a structure that it's difficult to change, and it takes a lot of time, and I think it requires a lot of things from the solutions here. And I think also one thing we see many places in the world is that you have the lack of incentives for innovation and implementing tech in especially the public sector. And I think one of the things is you need better reimbursement models. So why are they going to use this and change the way they work? And I think also you kind of see that the one that actually pay for it is not always the one that will receive the gain or the results from it. So then it's especially lack of incentives. Yeah. And I think important thing of how to break down the barriers of this, I think trust is important. Health tech it's not new, but it's still not being used in a large scale. So you have to kind of trust that this works, this actually gives the effect that we want. So we really work closely with clinicians, and don't underestimate kind of change management or implementation of this. Yeah.
In your opinion, where is the line between AI-driven decision support and human medical expertise, and how should that relationship develop over the time?
Like AI, I think it's one of the most discussed things lately in the health sector as well as other sectors. So, and it's really interesting. I think you obviously know that a doctor that works many hours with many patients, and the patients have complex situations or history, they cannot know everything, and they cannot do it perfectly every time. So seeing what AI can do is so interesting. But we're still in this kind of breaking point that I believe that AI should support and not replace the clinician, especially when you kind of have this complex assessment or need of empathy and support for the patient. So there's kind of this way to collaborate instead. And I think one thing we definitely need with AI is the transparency, kind of explainability, how did they get to that result. I think a really good way to look at it is also when you have a self-driven car, for instance, and you make and the car makes a mistake, that cannot happen. You really blame the car. So everything has to work perfectly. And it's the same way in the health sector. So if you use AI on something, you expect zero mistakes. And a problem here is that if you have an AI that should support the clinician, and let's say take some image detection, and it makes 5 mistakes out of every 1,000. The problem is that it's so few that it's the same with a self-driven car. You're supposed to be awake and follow what happens, but you get tired and you don't focus because it's such a small amount of errors. So I think that's the problem, kind of how this cooperation, the relationship should work over time. But I think definitely there's going to be this kind of hybrid model, if you can call it that, where AI will definitely handle more patterns and more data, and I think humans will provide more empathy assessment probably. Yeah.
Okay. Based in Norway, do you notice any challenges or opportunities in the tech industry in your region compared to other parts of the world?
Probably yes. It might not be that different from our neighbor countries, but Norway, we have this history that we worked a lot with digitalization for quite a while. So we're a really high digitalized country. We actually have a strategy now that in 2030 we're going to be the most digitalized country in the whole world. It's a really ambitious strategy, and I think even though the politicians have said it, I don't think they're going to think we're going to achieve it, but it just says something where we want to go with this. So there's a lot of focus on digitalization. I think there's a high trust of technology here. I think as far as I remember, there's always been this kind of strong public health systems and public systems in tech space, and municipalities, hospitals, organizations that try to innovate. Yeah, so there's strong focus on digitalization historically and in the coming years. So I think that also focus that the companies that evolve from this support digitalization. But still we're a small country. It's a still fragmented country, and also we don't really have access to capital. So I think that's some challenges that we see. And I think kind of how we should look into this is basically we should use Norway as this way to test something, and then we need to kind of get out because it's too small and fragmented, I think.
What are your thoughts on the advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing tech functions?
Yeah, we have experiences with outsourcing for a few years now, and a really good experience. So the market for developers or different tech functions in Norway, it's difficult, especially for a startup or scale-up company as us. So what it did for us was immediately giving our access to, if we can call it, cutting-edge expertise and getting talents in a really short time that we couldn't get before. Also, scalability. For us, it's scalability and flexibility goes hand in hand, that when we have increased interest of our products, we easily can scale up or down if we need with this. So I think that's definitely some of the advantage. Disadvantage, I think it all depends on how you actually do this, because I think potentially if you do it wrong, you could lose domain knowledge, you could lose speed of what you do. But I think that again is all about how you actually set it up. So I think based on that, for us, we have to be in control of product management, for instance, another kind of core competence that has to happen in-house, and we outsource kind of with this, to support these activities.
How do you see the role of IT outsourcing evolving in the tech industry, especially with advancements and automation and AI?
Yeah, I think we will see more hybrid teams, as we already do. As I just talked about, probably like core knowledge in-house are the most important roles, and then supported by more global talent. So yeah, you kind of have to retain, as I said, more the strategic control internally, but still it's really good to see how you can create these hybrid teams where you leverage external talents. So that's a good way. And then I think the nature of outsourced work, you see it kind of shifts from execution to collaboration, if I can call it that. And that's something that we also have good experience with, that previously it's more like handling of these tasks, like do this, but now it's more about kind of co-owning problems, co-creating solutions. And I think this is also something you need to do to actually make it work really well. And to do that, it requires much more high level of trust and integration of how you work together, shared roadmaps, joint sprint planning, etc., etc. So more of this kind of long-term alignment to work together with a partner rather than just like transactional delivery. And then you asked us about automation and AI. I think automation pushes both like the in-house and outsourced team to kind of, if you can say, move up the value chain, because you see that AI, it can do a lot. It can generate code, it can run tests, it does a lot, but it depends. Then you kind of have to look at what actually matters is why you're doing that, why you're building something, how it fits the user need and the challenges you have, how well can you kind of integrate it. So I think it means that you kind of, the external partner must understand much more of the context, maybe, and not just deliver different components, and puts much more weight on communication, design thinking, and this shared accountability.
As we wrap up our conversation, what advice would you give to companies considering IT outsourcing but concerned about losing control over their technology?
I think I've mentioned it a bit already. I think the main thing for us was not looking into like we just hire some consultants for doing a job. From day one, we made them a part of our team. So I think that's really important. And then you have to kind of involve them in all the different activities to kind of understand what are they being a part of. And we saw that by doing that, we actually gave the consultants kind of ownership of the company, of the product, of the projects, and also the customers we had. And I think what we've seen by that is an increase in internal collaboration. Like we saw that our developers that we hired suddenly started to talk with our designers, our product owners, project leaders, and became much more a part of the team and just doing a job. And then for us, we started like initially we did much more hire a consultant to do a job and got a new one in at a later point. But what we saw also is that we really need to think more this long-term team, so hire kind of consultants on a more long-term, getting the part of the team, build up the competence with them. And also our experience is that it was good to start small and build relationship and trust, and then increase on that. And we use different tools like project management systems, so we have more transparency. We have frequent syncs. I think that also is important when starting out, especially. So I think like management is basically the key here, not location or where you're based. And you even see that in Norwegian companies, a lot of people are working from home. So it's all about how you actually do this in the right way, not actually which country are you based in.
Yeah, definitely. Øyvind, thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. It was amazing, very interesting. I'm sure my auditor will like the podcast. And thanks for joining. Thank you very much. Thank you for the conversation. If you enjoy our discussion and want to stay updated on future episodes, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you will not miss out on the latest insights and conversations from the Devico Breakfast Bar. See you in the next episode.